Everybody, welcome back to the Beyond the Peloton podcast. I'm Spencer Martin, author of the Beyond the Peloton newsletter. I'm here, as always, with Andrew Vontz from the Choose the Hard Way podcast, the Always the Hard Way newsletter. We are talking European Championships, which we forgot happened just last weekend. There's been multiple races since. Tadej Pogačar has won races since then, and then we have the season finale, probably just as you're listening to this on Saturday morning. And then we'll get into a little bit of the Derek G IPT drama. And then Andrew's going to explain what the heck Garmin and Strava are feuding about. But before we get into that, Andrew, do you want to plug anything?
Yeah, I'd love to plug K-pop Demon Hunters. I think it's got some great tracks.
Needs it.
Yeah, it's finally made it into my home here in Hope, Maine. Like the mail, it takes a while for things to travel here, even when it's arriving via streaming service. But it's made it. Was singing Soda Pop in the car with my daughter this morning. Great track. And speaking of K-pop Demon Hunters, if you are a senior leader, and I know many of you out there listening to Beyond the Peloton are masters of the universe and your disciplines. And if you are a senior leader, you know that podcasts are now mission critical to building your reputation and being known. And that's why I started my consultancy, One Real Voice. It's the strategic podcast consultancy that coaches you to be a great guest or host. Or if you have a podcast or you're thinking about starting one, you want to think through where to show up. That's what I specialize in. If you're serious about being great, you can go to onerealvoice.com, or heck, just DM me at HardwayPod and deeply explore my link tree.
The link tree is life. The link tree of life.
It is the link tree of life. Yes, it's incredible. What a place to be. What a time to be alive, Spencer. It frosted here last night. I think I'm going to have to get out a pickaxe to take that sheet of ice off my cold plunge before I rejuvenate this afternoon. And as you know, I was carving up prior to our recording. We both had to delay a bit, thinking 90 to 120 minutes ahead when we're going to be out there just full gas.
Just ripping, absolutely ripping. On K-pop Demon Hunters, this has not entered our home. Our kids have not been exposed to it at all. My son comes home from kindergarten and is talking about it, saying they listened to it at school. What is going on in this school? You guys just sitting around bopping to music? What the heck? Andrew, since we last spoke, Tadej Pogačar has won multiple races. I had a lot of thoughts about European Championships. Since I wrote the newsletter, ejected them from my brain. I'm trying to pull them back in now. I don't want to dwell too much on these races because every race is the same, except one race this week, which is super interesting. But at Euro Championships, Remco in Belgium clearly said, let's take it to this guy. We're going to isolate his team. They're attacking from far out. Jonas is dropped. Why is Jonas dropped? Well, he's not a one-day racer. Well, okay, what's the difference between riding hard in a one-day race and a stage race? Not clear to me, but he's getting dropped. I would say it's more of an effort/focus thing. I also think he did the race just because he could drive from his house. Also, so Belgium has Pogačar isolated. Slovenia's dropped. It's like they read half of the Greg LeMond tactical handbook because, okay, he's isolated. Now we're going to get on the front and ride a real hard, steady pace. Well, what would Pogačar's teammates be doing, Andrew? They would probably be doing exactly that. Isolating someone only works if you're going to then start attacking them one by one. And even in this case, on this course, does Pogačar really care about that? I don't think so, because if Tadej Pogačar goes up the road, Pogačar is going to say, I'm going to give that guy 3 minutes, and then I'm going to nuke people on the hardest climb. I'm probably going to reel them in and drop them and win the race. But Belgium doesn't even do that. They just kind of ride a steady pace. They inadvertently then launch Pogačar on the hardest climb. Remco before this, there was a few moments where he would get to the top of milder climbs and go really hard over the top to try to get a gap. You know, it's like the Remco go hard. And he tries to get a gap. And when he's racing against pancakes, it works because he gets a gap and no one can pull him in. He's got 5 feet, might as well be a mile. He goes, well, he's racing against the best guy of all time, so that doesn't work. And then when Pogačar goes, Remco holds on for 500 meters, is dropped, and then he's stuck in a group, and it looks like a group is chasing Tadej Pogačar, but it's not really because Remco is the strongest guy in the group. Everyone's just been dropped by him, meaning when it goes uphill, they're going slower than him. So it doesn't matter if there's 4 of them or 400 of them, they will just lose time. Pogačar's gotten very good at getting a gap, let's say 20 seconds. He does not pile it on right away. He eases, I'm saying eases, he's probably going 550 watts when he's doing this. He's just like easing the pace up. They think they can catch him. They overextend, and then the elastic snaps. It's really smart, shows how in control he is. He wins easy peasy. Remco Evenepoel second, and Paul Seychelles third. 19 years old. It might be like third place, that's just second loser. I looked back. I mean, Pogačar was not getting results like this at 19. This is seriously good. And on the day before, 21-year-old or 20-year-old Isaac Del Toro won against Primož Roglič and Tom Pidcock. Also made Tom Pidcock look like his little brother. That was freaky stuff if you're not a fan of Del Toro. Del Toro's 21, not 20. But clearly these young guys are really good. Pogačar's really good. And then I will end this at some point. Tuesday rolls around. Tre Valle Varencine. It's a race in Italy, kind of a warm-up race to Lombardia, which is this weekend. Super interesting. Pogačar and UAE let a breakaway go away with strong riders like Quinn Simmons. And you're like, what's going on? And then Del Toro bridges up. You're like, oh, Del Toro must be trying to win this race. No, who's on his wheel? Tadej Pogačar. They get up to the breakaway. Del Toro gets on the front. Who is everyone staring at? Isaac Del Toro. They're ignoring Tadej Pogačar. Why? Why are you letting this man go to the back? What are we doing? Do you know who he is? But I think they're waiting for him to attack on the climb. No, he attacks on the false flat downhill. Why in the heck would you ever give him an inch? But because they let him go to the back of the group, he pulls through. He gets a meter. He's got a meter. He might as well have a mile because they can't close it. They're pulling as hard as they can, but the problem is he's by himself. He clearly has buy-in with himself. The people behind are looking at each other. They're not going to go all in. And then he rips away on the downhill. I mean, to me, this was one of the most impressive performances because it's like, okay, Pogačar, we know he can rip clear on climbs. Now we're watching him almost see how more ridiculous ways he can win, and attacking on a false flat downhill, one of the hardest ways to get away. And he did it and he won. He'll probably win tomorrow. Andrew, any thoughts that I didn't cover on Pogačar's recent dominance?
Thinking about the video that just popped up of Pogačar riding a unicycle in the backyard behind, maybe it's behind Erska? Is that who he's riding
That might
behind?
be the bike he's racing tomorrow. He's looking for a challenge.
It seems like he could probably win on a unicycle. Also, if you happen to catch that video, you can hit the link tree at Hardway Pod.
It will be in there.
I'll post some GIFs of that. He kept falling over, and I kept thinking, man, you're going to have an ACL injury or something. The guy just doesn't care. He's footloose. He's fancy-free. I feel like he's getting close to the point where he's ready to drop another rap track. You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy's ready to step off the bus and spit bars. And
it's funny you say that because he has been getting a lot of, I guess I'll call it crap from, remember Moo? This guy, I don't want to attack Moo because I don't want Moo coming after us. But Moo's turned on him because he says he's not fun anymore. He looks sad all the time. So maybe the rap days are behind him.
Yeah, he's a little more goth boy click than Lil Xan, I guess. He's got the Klanka V Clank. I'm definitely saying this wrong. It's a unique cycling experience. It's coming up in Slovenia, and it's your opportunity to race against Pog. And have you read about this? He has this.
No.
Yeah, I believe that Remco and Jonas are the other two riders who are competing against him. It's a 3-person race.
Oh, it's like the best riders in the world are facing off.
Yeah, it's like Circus of the Stars coming to your town if you happen to live in Slovenia. And I'm not quite sure what this thing is. You can apply for it. Cycling along Pagi is on the menu here on the product description page. Here you will compete against a world champion, ride with him, and see how long you can hold his pace. If you get in, please let us know how it goes. And I can tell you the amount of time you can hold his pace is not very long. And that's axiomatic, whether you are a professional cyclist, whether you're out there in Griffith Park with Matthew Van Der Poel, or you're just listening to this podcast. I don't think you're going to keep up for very long. And I think there is this question of, is Remco's confidence growing, or is it being decimated by these experiences? I think this is kind of the critical question that we need to think about as we enter this very short off season here following this weekend. And then we're right back at it at the Sun Tour, the Cadell Classic, the Australia National Criterium Championships. Will we see Caleb Ewan come off the couch to compete on the famous hot dog course?
That would be something. I just did the calculations.
Okay.
So Pogačar at threshold, which he can do for an hour, I would have to ride 600 watts to sit on that. And the longest I've done that for recently is 2 minutes. So 2 minutes is probably how long I could sit on this wheel. That's something to think about. That's him at like hour-long climbing pace. I'm gone after 2 minutes. Holy smokes. I think that's an interesting question, actually, Remco, because I think Remco is doing fantastic. As Remco's supportive parent here, I would be his last 4 races, wins Time Trial World Championships, second in the road race, wins Continental European Time Trial Championships, second in the road race, second behind Pogačar, is basically winning at this point. He's doing amazing, probably the best he's ever done. I don't think he views it as that. I think he is probably devastated. I think this is maybe doing unrepairable damage to Remco's confidence, because in his mind, he's better than Tadej Pogačar. He is just getting smashed by Pogačar. I think tomorrow, people are going to say, oh, this is boring. I would still say, go back and watch that Vuelta, man. When there's no Pogačar, it's not better. It's worse, I would say. But tomorrow's really key, because if he can somehow get a win over Pogačar, he's got something. If he gets beat again, I don't really see a path forward for him emotionally. I mean, sporting-wise, just pull the primos and do races that Pogačar's not doing. You're going to do great. But man, I think he needs to be the best, and it's going to be tough for him. I also think it's going to get hard. I think I've said this multiple times on many different places. I forget where I've said it, but Del Toro is a problem if you're Remco, because this guy is the real deal. At 21, he's a better one-day racer than Tadej Pogačar was at 21, and he's not going anywhere. And he seems to get better every race. So, like, he just won a race yesterday. He's winning races that you don't even know happened. That's how good this guy is. He might be winning a race right now. So I think the future could be a bit bumpy for Remco, even though, like, on the stat sheet, he's doing amazing.
Now that we have Remco moving towards, once again, attempting to win the Tour de France, which I just think is the wrong direction for his career, I keep thinking about Mathieu van der Poel, and we read that interview this week, or the translation of it. I'm not going to remember the name of the newspaper. I think he said he rode past the newspaper all the time, and then he just popped in and gave them an interview finally. And something that was interesting about that interview, which at this point just sounds vague, beyond vague, right? I don't even know what I'm talking about. But it was published last week in Europe.
It was an interview with Van der Poel. We've all seen it in our For You page. Every time you open your phone, you're getting served this thing up.
The key takeaway for me, Van der Poel likes to golf. And
loves
he said,
to golf.
Yeah, big problem with the current generation of riders, in his view, is, you know what? They're just not finding ways to unwind off the bike. That's probably because only 4 people win bike races in the entire world at the World Tour level, and they're all working hard and don't have time to hit the links. It made me think, though, we know that Pog really, really wants Milan-San Remo, perhaps more than any other race other than Paris-Roubaix in his palmares. He wants those wins in his quiver, something that Van der Poel inadvertently disclosed that I think is the chink in his armor, and I think that this is how Pog maneuvers his way to a win at Paris-Roubaix. You've got to get Van der Poel to do a long-haul private jet travel west to east. He can't handle the west to east jet lag, we learned.
Which I think that's the easiest
He's not
jet
Scott
lag.
McGill. He's not shoving a Jersey Mike's in each pocket and getting on a 15-hour flight in coach, back of the bus, heading over to Crete to do that UCI level 2 race and win the sprint the minute after he lands. He can't do that. So McGill has that gift. Vanderpool doesn't. That's how you beat him.
You know, we're world champion. Unless they start having major golf tournaments in North America the week before Paris-Roubaix, could be tough. You never know, though. Vanderpool, I thought he was very modest in the interview, almost overly modest, because it's like you're going up against this guy and beating him on a regular basis in the classics. You could beat him at Roubaix, beat him at San Remo. Not many people can say that. I thought he had great perspective, and he's saying everything I always try to say, but I don't feel like gets through. Like, people are like, I don't know, I think Vanderpool's the better rider. It's like, well, it's as simple as Mathieu van der Poel sometimes beats Pogačar in Mathieu van der Poel's specialty, and he can never challenge Pogačar in his specialty. But Pogačar always beats Mathieu van der Poel in his specialty, which is hilly one-day races and Grand Tours, and sometimes also beats Van der Poel in Van der Poel's specialty. That's incredibly unique. Also, Van der Poel I love what this guy's doing, and it's like a protest vote. Like, a lot of these non-climbers are pretty sick of the situation at the moment because races are getting harder. World Championships was a mountain course, basically. European Championships was a mountain course, and now it's Lombardia, and they're saying, well, why would I show up to any of these races? I can't compete. There's no point. So I'm going to go to the Ryder Cup. It's going to be awesome. And then I'm going to go to LA and do the trash truck climb. That's going to be awesome too. It's just like funny how he's opted out of the last half of the season. Here's a question for you. Van der Poel wins 2 monuments this year, San Remo and Roubaix. Pretty good. Hard to quibble with that. Wins the Tour de France stage. Only wins 6 races. He kind of gets away with not winning a lot. Like other riders with 6 wins. Brandon McNulty, Romain Gregoire, Soren Wolkenskold. Tom Pidcock has 5. Like, you would not say any of these people are like the most winning riders in the sport, but Van der Poel seems to be able to win. He performs in a really limited window, and he's almost immune from criticism for that. Like, but people pile on Wout van Aert all the time. Like, this guy sucks. He never wins. It's like, Wout van Aert was just about to win the and everyone says, oh, he's not as good as he used to be. He just almost won the KOM Jersey, the Vuelta last year before he crashed out. Like, that's pretty good. And he just beat Tadej Pogačar on the most important stage of the Tour de France, so the most publicized one. He beat Isaac Del Toro in the most publicized stage of the Giro d'Italia. That's pretty good. But yeah, it's funny. Why do you think that is with Van der Poel? Just because is he just like a master of communication? We never really noticed that he's not performing all the time.
Spencer, which Chicago Bull do you think holds the franchise's all-time assist record?
Oof. Man. Holy smokes. Which Chicago Bull holds the all-time assist? Is it Scottie Pippen?
Second. He's second.
Who's first?
Michael Jordan.
That's not what I would have guessed. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I think when we take a look at the season that Mathieu van der Poel just had, yes, you're right. 6 wins, a few pretty notable wins, I would say. And he has to have among the most assists in the league, I think, of helping his teammates win major stages and races, right? And this is interesting. Something we have not seen inside of Alpecin, and I'm doing a quick memory check because, as you know, my memory is wiped every 24 hours to make room for new memories. Didn't seem to be a lot of dissent within that team this year relative to the drama we've seen across almost all other teams at the highest level of the World Tour. And perhaps, I mean, we have to say it's the iron fist of the Woodhoof brothers, of course. And somehow a rider who, if we think back to the Australia World Championships, when it seemed that Mathieu van der Poel was one of the less mature athletes at the highest level of the sport, somehow he seems to have developed into this very mature leader of his team, doing a good job maintaining harmony within Alpecin, dealing out wins to other riders, and ensuring that they are there when he needs them, while also doing a lot of development of his personal business portfolio, it seems. To me, that's what the LA trip was all about, right? It's not about legacy. It's about, he's really transformed his image, I think, because I could probably count on half of the fingers on one hand. It's 2.5 fingers. The number of people I knew who were Vanderpool fans following that Australia incident. I feel like he's really turned his image around, and he really has built out a business portfolio that has created this virtuous cycle where, yes, his wins count. They're helping him get great contracts and sponsorships, but he's seeing upside, I think, way beyond what he's doing day to day inside the sport. And the other thought that I had, I have not heard this discussed a lot. If we think about the manner in which Pog has been winning, especially here towards the end of the season, I have this feeling it's not just the long range attack because it works. I think he's looking forward to and training for Paris-Roubaix. That's what I think is actually happening right now. I think he's developing because I think that's what we're going to see him do at Paris-Roubaix. And I think he's been thinking about it the entire year.
Well, it also, if you can win a couple monuments along the way, it's not, that's nothing to sneeze at. It is funny about Vanderpool. I'd almost forgotten about the Australian incident. I was looking at results, 2022 world champs, and the notes on Pro Cycling Stats said Mathieu van der Poel in jail for altercation before event. I was like, whoa, I forgot that happened, because he does. He's almost like an elder statesman now of the sport. I want to see a Harvard Business Review study on the team. I mean, the low budget, they seem to get everyone to buy in. They don't spend a lot of money outside of a few areas, but they also get those stars they spend money on to work for the greater good of the team. Super impressive. I mean, they had Caden Groves, Jasper Philipsen, and Van der Poel all at the same Tour de France on Lombardia. The final, let's call it the final race of the season, because let's be honest, no one's going to watch Tour of Guangxi. That's ridiculous. It's on at 2 a.m. There will be some points implications this year. At this point, it looks like Uno X will get the final World Tour spot. Total Energies will be relegated. Wait, they're already second division. Cofidis will be relegated, and then they'll be fighting with Total and someone else for the final automatic second division invitation spots. Is a very convoluted, confusing process. It will all end with Unibet Tituma Rockets being invited to the 2026 Tour de France. Quote me on that. That's probably going to happen. Super impressive. I can't believe I ever criticized that team. They're going to go to the Tour with Dylan Groenewegen. They could win a stage. Think about that, Andrew. But Lombardia tomorrow. This is an interesting monument because it's the only one, I believe, that switches its course. So not the same course every year. Sometimes it runs Bergamo to Como, sometimes Como to Bergamo, north of Milan. This is the easy course, Como to Bergamo. The harder climbs on the Bellagio Peninsula are just early in the race, and they do the easier side of the harder climbs. The longest climb is about 12K long. It's only 6% average. And then there's like a little lip at the end that is 7% average for about 3K. This is not categorized in that climb. And then they do the Passo de Ganda, 10K long, 7%. Tops out with 30K to go. Let's be honest, that's where the winning move is going to go, and it's going to be Pogačar. And then there's one little 1.3 kilometer climb at 8%, right before the finish in Bergamo. Home of Marco Panatti, guest on this podcast, Jaco Alula's head of sports science and rider development. But I think Pogačar has got it. Do you see any scenario where he does not win this race?
Why are we even talking about this? We've got Gravel World Championships the following
I thought those already happened.
No.
What was Gravel World?
Gravel Worlds in Nebraska is an event that's called Gravel Worlds that has been happening for quite a while, and it predates the birth of the UCI creating an official Gravel World Championships. This weekend is the Gravel World Championships in Maastricht. And
okay. Well, we'll tie this in because okay, why are we talking about this? Because I want you to give me the podium, because we already know who's going to win. Who's going to finish second and third?
Oh, man. Okay. All right. Pog wins. Ben Healy's second, and Remco's going to have a bike problem or quit.
No bike problem last weekend.
Yeah.
Clean race.
Oh, geez. And yeah, I'm going to go with Pog first, Ben Healy second, Pidcock third. Who have you got?
That's exactly what I wanted you to say. I'm going to do Pogačar, Del Toro, Evenepoel.
All
Crazy
right.
thing, you mentioned Tom Pidcock, but in your mind you must be confused because you're thinking, whoa, I thought Tom Pidcock was doing gravel worlds. Well, he's doing both. He's flying the Jizzy from Lombardia to the Netherlands right after the race so he can do the Gravel World Championships on Sunday. Yeah. Unbelievable.
He might take the UTV and just drive overnight. We don't know. The man loves the thrill.
Probably win. What do we know anything about the course for the Gravel World Championships? Is insanely hectic, by the way. Like, people show up to do it, but I believe it's point to point, and there's thousands of people. So you have to somehow get yourself from the finish line back to the start line where you parked, and it can involve trains and hitchhiking. Not the most, but that's nothing is more the spirit of gravel than just complete chaos and lack of communication and help from an organizer. Do you think Tom Pidcock's going to win the Gravel World Championships?
No, I don't. You know what? Up until about 30 seconds ago, I thought he was going to win. Now, I don't think he's going to win. I just saw we've got 59-year-old Johan Museo is going to be on the line. I don't think that Johan is probably going to win. He is looking fit. And gosh, who are we going to see? So we got Pidcock, Tim Merlier, Monte Mohoric, Tim Wellens, and like the women's field stacked as well. Voss, Nui Adoma, Woolman, Pasio, Wiebes. The funny thing here is that the source of truth for this is Cycling News. And there's nothing on Pro Cycling Stats and the UCI. If you go to the UCI landing page, good luck. I think you're going to have to go 20 clicks deep and open a PDF to look at something. We got Greg Van Avermaet, Zdeněk Štibar, Roman Bardet. Wow. Dan Lloyd? Udo Boltz? Oh my God. The sport's greatest mullet ever, bar none. Laurent Brochard also lining up.
Udo Boltz is in really good shape. I think Tom Pidcock probably wins this. I don't know the course. But if it involves bicycles and being off road, Pidcock is unbelievable.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Pidcock also has race number 1. So this is just a classic without knowing anything about the course. Although I watched a preview a while ago.
This is so hard to find information about.
Yeah. I watched a YouTube video, I think, where someone went and rode. This is not American gravel. This is European gravel. And the European gravel is older, Spencer. And the roads tend to be smoother and narrower. And there's a fatal funnel at the beginning of these UCI gravel races. I think, maybe we go straight to Kip's corner. Shout out to Kip. Kip sent in a clip, I think, from the most recent UCI gravel race showing people going through the starting pen for like 10 minutes. It was like 900 deep. And the reality is, if you're not in the top 20 riders at the start of this race, you're done. And the World Tour riders are going to be gridded best. And therefore, it stands to reason that after the openers on Saturday at Lombardia, I'm going to reverse my decision. I'm going with Pidcock.
It would be pretty epic if he does win it after flying back. That is wild.
Yeah.
I guess he's doing it for the love of the gravel. European gravel is quite a bit different. While we're talking about this, it reminds me, we've given no shout-outs to this man. We're not nearly enough, at least all year. Chris Blevins wins the Lake Placid World Cup last weekend. I believe his 3rd XCO World Cup win this year, and then wins the World Cup overall. First time an American since John Tomac.
John Tomac, American legend. Yeah. Is pretty impressive.
Someone asked me in my comments, is Blevins the best American mountain biker of all time?
That's a good question.
I mean, what he's doing with the level of competition, it's somewhat mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. I have to say, I actually went back and I was watching footage of Tomac yesterday. And
I saw
Tomac,
this too.
and Tomac was no joke. I mean,
No.
whatever the level of competition is today, and I would agree, Chris Blevins, he's either the best or it's Tomac. But Tomac, in his era, Tomac, former pro BMX rider, then professional mountain bike racer, then was on the road at 7-Eleven. The vibe I got was maybe he didn't want to put hot sauce on his tacos and did not spend a lot of time on the road, if you know what I mean. And then was back mountain bike racing, and within mountain bike racing, dominated not just cross country, but downhill as well. He was a phenom, and I wanted to interview him for a long time. I reached out through Zapata Espinoza, another legend in the mountain bike community, to try to connect to Tomac, and he's just down in Durango ranching. His son, Eli, is a motocross, supercross legend now. And John is just happy ranching cattle and doesn't really want to talk about the past, which is not something you hear from a lot of legends of that stature. The man's like practically a Dutton now. It's incredible.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at, he did the 1990 Giro d'Italia, and 1991 he raced professionally for Motorola.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you line that up with certain trend lines in the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might. I bet he doesn't have the best feelings about that era.
Yeah, probably. If people were interested in Blevins, and I think many of you are, jump into the Choose the Hard Way archives. I had Chris on prior to the Olympics last year. Great interview, very thoughtful person. And if you're wondering,
Durango?
He is from Durango, yes.
Crazy.
Yeah, he's from Durango. And if you're wondering why he is not in the world tour, we actually cover that in the interview. He had a wreck he was a very, very high level BMX racer. I think he was pro. He won multiple national championships, started at a really young age. He had a super gnarly BMX crash, and I think he broke a bone in his inner ear, and it made him deaf in one ear. So when he's on the road, he can only hear out of one ear. And I think that obviously is going to impact your ability to ride in a group or make it more difficult. And I think he's compensated over time. But I think that was one of the factors in leaning more towards mountain biking versus going onto the road, like Sepp Kuss, who he came up with in the Durango junior development scene. It is incredible because we had Tomac was based out of Durango or ended up there, and now 30 years later, Ned Overend, the lung, who, as we were discussing privately, destroyed the wafer. And
the wafer's still pretty long.
The wafer, the wafer is no joke for anybody who's done any Belgian waffle ride. They're all pretty terrible. They're very difficult races, even the shorter ones. But the lung, Ned Overend, won the wafer at BWR North Carolina. Adam Roberge, back-to-back wins, and the waffle, I guess. I don't know what's the big one called.
The waffle, maybe. The waffle's too long.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Blevins actually. I remember him as a road racer, and so in 2018 he actually he won a stage at Gila, fifth at a stage at Colorado Classic, which had a lot of good riders in it. Actually, if you go back and look at the Colorado Classic, like stage 1, Vail to Vail, won by Gage Hecht. That was nuts.
Man, wow, seriously?
So
I didn't realize Gage was that high level on the road.
He was 19 years old at the time. 19,
wow.
Shows up to the Colorado Classic and wins stage 1 solo. Super impressive. Yeah, Blevins was in that race. It actually was quite a good road racer. But as you say, you're probably never going to be that comfortable. And then COVID happens. That whole generation loses a year, 2 years. He's at Tour Britain in 2021 for Trinity Racing, which I believe had Tom Pidcock on it. And then after that, he kind of went full-time mountain bike. Guy's incredible. We could do a weekly Durango power rankings. And it's not even clear that Simmons or Sepp Kuss would be number 1. Like, I think Blevins this week.
Wild.
Probably best rider from Durango of that age right now. Simmons, you're going to have to win Lombardia if you want to get that spot back. But before we move on to Garmin versus Strava, let's talk a little bit about Derek G and contract disputes.
Let's talk about it.
A little bit of background. So background on this. No one remembers this, but before the Vuelta a España, Derek G was supposed to lead the Israel Premier Tech team at that race. He's taken off the start list last second. Nobody knows what happens. Matthew Riccatello's pulled in last second, gets fifth overall. Good outcome for the team and Matthew because that was the perfect race for him. Potentially related to Derek's issues that come about later, Israel Premier Tech didn't want to take Matthew Riccatello to that race because, quote, they didn't think the climbs were that good for him. Well, he's a climber and they're climbs, so they're probably pretty good for him. Unclear what the sporting thinking behind that is, but it would suggest either flawed thinking or a personal dislike leading to icing out of major races. So it comes out during the Vuelta, Derek G has actually unilaterally, I guess, left his contract with Israel Premier Tech. He's now a free agent. That's not really how contracts work. So I have some questions about how that functions on the back end. But the rumors are that Ineos has offered him a contract. He's terminated his contract with Israel. He's going to Ineos because they're going to pay him quite a bit more money. I don't want to dox anybody here, but what happened too is, if you remember,
go ahead and do it. Let's get a home address.
Derek G came about. It was the Giro, 2 years ago? He was like in the breakaway every day. He's offered a 5-year extension for what I believe is to be between 300,000 and 500,000 euros a year for 5 years. At the time, you could imagine a man from Canada who's like just happy to be at that level, saying, "Wow, that's a lot of money. I'm going to take that." He doesn't have an agent. He signs that contract, long-term contract. Next year, he's even better, and he's a GC threat. If you remember, he was up there at the Dauphiné. It was Roglic, Jorgensen, and G. And then he's also pretty good at the Tour de France. But now he's in a different ballgame pay-wise. Like, once you are a big engine like that, showing that much promise as a Grand Tour rider, you're not talking 500,000. You're talking millions that you could and should be getting paid every year. I would imagine Ineos offered him quite a good contract worth multiple millions of dollars a year. Now he's in a pickle because he's only making 500 grand, maybe less than that for the next 3 years. So how do you fix this, Andrew? Well, we've seen it. We've seen it in all sports. We've seen it in cycling quite a bit in the past. Like Kayne Uterbrooks just left his contract with Visma. Remember, people don't remember this. Wout van Aert was on a small team and he left a contract. The team fought it. He went to Visma. They fight it in court. 4 or 5 years later, the team is under and they win the court case, and Wout has to pay them like $600,000. Ended up being worth it for him. Usually what happens is you end up just having to pay the remaining money on your contract and you can leave, because once these contracts go into actual court in Europe is so pro-labor that they will not let a team keep you against your will. Also, as Johan Bernal pointed out, what are you going to gain here as a team? You win and then you have a rider that doesn't want to be there? That's not good either. So usually a deal is made behind the scenes. For some reason, a deal was not made here. I have no idea why Ineos just didn't pay Israel a bunch of money and it goes away. So what happens? And then G is releasing kind of ambiguous comments saying, "Oh, this isn't about the money. It's about my conscience, and an issue at the team has arisen." I think that's kind of hinting at, I can't continue because of the war in Gaza. But then Israel Premier Tech announces, and they get, I don't know if you noticed this, they got iced out of all these Italian races. They dropped out of Lombardia tomorrow because it's just not safe for them to be there because of the protest, like we saw at the Vuelta. They're changing their team name. Sylvan Adams is stepping back from like a public face of the team, and they're going to probably register in a different country, most likely Canada. So if G is saying, "I'm leaving the team because of that," well, now he doesn't really have a foot to stand on. Our friend Jonathan Kaplan wrote a very good piece on this today on his Riding With newsletter titled "Expertly Hear G, Hear G." It's a fantastic title. But he kind of pokes hole. Derek G released a statement yesterday explaining what's going on, / not really explaining what's going on. A lot of passive voice, a lot of broad strokes. I'm doing this not for the money, but because I need to take a stand. I would ask you as a communications professional, why say anything? Because now Derek G has pinned himself in a little bit, because if it's not about the money, well, it seems like the other reason has gone away, unless he had an issue with a performance staffer inside the team. But why is Derek G saying anything about this, Andrew?
If you're explaining, you're losing.
Yeah. And he didn't need, I don't feel like he didn't need to make any statement on this. Like, it just could have been quiet.
Yeah. When you see parties fighting in public like this, when a negotiation has certainly taken place in private, and this was a private matter previously between Derek G and his employer and his boss, Sylvan. And what we know is happening now is, number one, Derek G has definitely left the team. He's broken his contract. He's no longer racing. And we know that there has now been a lawsuit filed for damages. And I'll tell you what I learned from this statement was that this lawsuit had been filed for damages. And it seems to me that what Derek G is doing, and his management or whoever's advising him on communications, is they're trying to make this litigation go away and for it to appear onerous and punitive and to be related to something that has to do with Derek G's moral conscience, not with a financial matter. So I would say this is likely just a financial matter, and this moral matter is being dragged into it potentially as air cover and to try to make this lawsuit go away, because whatever resources Derek G has and his management may have, they almost certainly are not billionaires, and billionaires have large war chests. And when they get mad, they can financially destroy people. I mean, that's the reality of it, right? And you didn't mention this, Spencer, but I think another important thing to note here is if we just take a look at the history of Sylvan Adams and his interactions with talent on his team and contract matters, we have to remember that in July of 2020, they announced Chris Froome would join the team in 2021 under a long-term contract that, quote, will see Froome wear ISN's blue and white until the end of his career. As we know, has had multiple catastrophic injuries, has been out of competition almost the entire time since signing that contract. And again, this is a private matter. This is a dispute between an employer.
And they knew about the injuries before they signed this deal. But they knew he had gone through a catastrophic injury. This was not like hidden from them.
Yeah. Well, and then he subsequently kept wrecking and having these horrible catastrophic injuries or not competing at the level that they thought he would. So how do you handle that? Typically, criticize in private, praise in public. That's generally a good way to roll in life. And as it relates to employment matters, 2023, Sylvan Adams publicly says that Chris Froome was not, quote, value for money, noting that, quote, we signed Chris to be the leader of our Tour de France team, and he's not even here. And then there starts to be this big back and forth. In 2024, there's an article that says the Froome contract was the worst signing in cycling history. And what did Froome do? He said, hey, we signed this contract through the end of my career. I want you to honor the contract. And he's getting paid. He seems to be making his best effort. And I think that they just wanted him to go away. And Sylvan Adams has repeatedly publicly attacked him, which you can do, but they have a contract, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like Sylvan Adams is trying to break the contract, just like Derek G, for financial reasons, wanted to break this contract. So it seems that what Sylvan Adams did previously in relation to Froome, which was not successful, which I'm sure he does not like, Derek G and his agent are now doing to him, and he doesn't like it because no one likes to lose typically.
And it's also possible Derek G, I'm trying to figure out how to say this diplomatically. Israel Premier Tech marches to the beat of their own drum. It's an unusual team where Sylvan Adams is very involved in the sporting aspect in terms of selecting teams to go to races, deciding where and why and when and how and if altitude camps will happen. I heard he told them one time, you don't need altitude camps because I'm a Masters World Champion and I didn't have an altitude camp, so I'm not paying for altitude camps for you guys. He's very involved as an owner. This happens sometimes in sports. It's almost never good. Potentially that's why Derek G wants to leave. He's just like, this is not professional. I could do better. That's not really what the statement is saying, though. And the problem with the statement is, well, okay, let's say it's not related to that. Let's say it's related to the war in Gaza. Well, the war's over as of today. And also, your team's going to be a Canadian team next year and not really have a relationship with the state of Israel. We could get into another conversation of, well, Sylvan Adams is probably going to stop funding this team. And what happens to the team? Is this a dead team? Because if he walks away, who's going to pay for that team? If he can't be around the team and can't promote Israel with it, does he want to keep doing it? But the big thing I keep coming back to is, okay, let's say he goes to Ineos. Do you have ethical concerns about that? It's like a plastics company. And we're finding out that plastics probably are the demise of all of us in terms of PFAS and giving us all cancer and just generally destroying the environment and the world. So is there the moment this is why I would be very, like there was a rider on Visma that was very aggressive to the Israel riders to get them to leave the Vuelta. And it's like, well, what happens when it comes out that Visma is doing something that's not so great or that people disagree with? Then you're on the chopping block. It's just, I would be very hesitant to throw this around if I was Derek G, because the next team you sign with, it's not guaranteed that they're going to have, I mean, how many teams even have like squeaky clean, non-ethical issues? It'd be like Picnic Post NL. Like, if you against the post office, probably not, but there's not many teams like that.
Well, Spencer, Visma, of course, builds mission-critical cloud software, and who doesn't love that? I mean,
could never be used for
anything these
bad.
Writers can craft. Yeah, I think the thing that G has going in his favor is we now live in a world where the communication cycle I spoke of my own brain being wiped, which happens every 24 hours. Just something more outrageous seems to happen almost daily. I mean, if we just think about reporting around Remco Evenepoel's contract over the past 2 years, I don't know, can you remember whatever you know what I mean? Like, what was going on?
Does anyone remember
Wout
Van Aert broke his contract to go to Visma?
Right.
I bet nobody remembers that.
Yeah, nobody remembers that.
Didn't tarnish him at all.
Yeah, so I think that this is going to be a come and gone kind of deal. Perhaps more significantly, you kind of glossed over this. I think that if we return to the Beyond the Peloton circa March 2025, this was when Titema had gotten the wild card to go to Paris-Roubaix, and I said, they're going to go to the Tour de France. I don't want to break my arm patting myself on the back, but I called this one. They certainly will be there next year. And interestingly, Spencer, I don't know where the relegation battle stands. I'm guessing that Uno X is going to make it into the World Tour, and they're going to edge out Cofidis. Does that even matter? Cofidis is still going to get into all the ASO races. They're not going to get left on the sidelines. Does it matter?
Kind of matters.
Okay, why does it? Explain why to someone as simple as me. Explain why this matters.
So it kind of matters because there's World Tour teams. There's going to be 18 of them, I think. I hope. It might not.
Tell me a story about these World Tour teams.
I'm not even going to get into why there might not be 18, but let's just assume there's 18. All those teams have to go to all the World Tour races, including the big one, the Tour de France. So for 3 years, you're set. The downside is it is kind of expensive. You got to go to all these races.
Right.
It can be a benefit not to be a World Tour team. The second division is called Pro Teams. The top 3 pro teams in terms of UCI points from the year prior get automatic invites. This is next year. This year, it's just the top 2. The top 3 get automatic invites to all World Tour races. So that's the Grand Tours, the 1 days. The nice thing is you can decline them. Like a lotto never goes to the Giro. They just decline it because it's too costly and too hard on the team. The key there is you have to get the top 3. If you don't perform every year and finish in the top 3 of the second division teams, then you're kicked down to the wild card spots. There's 2 wild card spots. So currently it's a little dicey if you're French and you're not in there, because there's Arkea, there's Total, and there's Cofidis. And then Unibet is technically, the Tetema Rockets are technically a French team. But that's 3 French teams potentially going for 2 wildcard spots. The wrinkle here is, so the top ranked second division teams are going to be Tudor, Q36.5, and Lotto. But that means Cofidis, sorry, not Lotto. Lotto's going to be World Tour. Total Energies and Cofidis. Cofidis and Total Energies are fighting for that 3rd spot, and they're separated by 17 points currently. So one of them will be okay, and one of them will be in the wildcard spot. They'll probably be okay in the wildcard spot, but it just means your racing's kind of limited. You'll probably go to the Tour, but someone like the Tetema Rockets could come along and take your spot, because like that was not a legitimate team that long ago, and now they're going to go to the Tour de France. So once you're in the wildcard spot, it is a little dicey. It can be harder to get money from sponsors too. Like Jonathan Vaughters used to talk about this all the time. If you're not guaranteed a Tour de France slot, a lot of times it's an out for your sponsor. It's very hard to recruit sponsors. So they'll probably be at the Tour de France. It's also very hard to get riders, because you say, come to our team. Maybe we'll get invited to some races. Maybe we won't. Sure, we'll go to all the ASO races, but what about the Giro? What about the classics? Like nothing's guaranteed for you, and it can be very hard to recruit and keep the team going. I've got bigger questions about Cofidis. I've even got bigger questions about French cycling. Do we really need this many teams? I know it's like it's not PC to ever say maybe we have too many teams, but Decathlon, Groupama, Arkea, Cofidis, Total Energies. Does that feel like that's too many teams spreading the talent too thin with just the French teams?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you've not noticed, Total Energies is sponsoring Ineos. Someone crudely put, it'd be like if your wife starts wearing her boyfriend's name on her t-shirt. Your days are numbered. Because then Total, of course, announced that they're not going to sponsor the team after 2026 because they're already sponsoring Ineos. Arkea looks like they're going to be done after this year. So things would get really complicated for Cofidis if Arkea does not go away, right? Because then you have Total, Cofidis, Arkea all going for 2 wildcard spots. And then you have these Swiss teams coming along. This is a big pain in the butt for the French teams, because Tudor and Q36.5 have massive budgets, and these Swiss teams are now coming along and eating up the automatic invite spots. Same thing with the Norwegian team, Uno X. Like, this is causing major problems for French cycling. I think it's probably good for the sport that you have more professionalized second division teams coming along and taking this seriously versus, I would say, the class clowns that some of these French teams act like. They just kind of dick around because they know that they're going to get invited. They don't really take it seriously. They don't really develop riders. They just kind of stagnate. So I think it's ultimately good for the sport that the good teams that take it seriously are rewarded and the ones that do not are punished. But maybe that's controversial.
And Spencer, there is, of course, also the Lotto Intermarché merger that's happening, right? And that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Did you notice during Worlds that I believe Pog had a Next Hash logo?
Well, not Next Hash.
Was this a different one?
If you look closely, it says Nice Hash.
Isn't that the one that was the giant rug pull that was a mess?
But that was Next Hash, and they started a new business called Nice Hash.
Okay, so I'm not mistaken that this is somehow related to.
No. They just rebranded.
Wow.
It's basically
Genius.
a criminal organization. It's just like, oh, we were shut down. Nice Hash has nothing to do with Next Hash. What are you talking about?
Beautiful. I love it. That's great. Great to see him back in the game. So this is how it's done. Yeah.
I had a business idea once where you would just sell movies called, I don't know, Enemy of the State, but it's just a fake. It's just you've made your own movie called Enemy of the State. Same marketing materials as the real movie Enemy of the State. Sell it online. People complain, sorry, you bought Enemy of the State. I never said it was that one. You're just committing crime. And then if you get caught, you just close down, start as a new entity. And that's essentially what Nice Hash has done.
We're going to have to talk about this offline. What a great idea.
Magnolia. It's just you are filming a Magnolia, but the marketing material is all Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah. Well, Spencer, before we move on, I was doing a little bit of research while we were talking about the Derek G matter. We were talking about what his contract potentially was at IPT that he was breaking, and that we don't know this for sure, but we're speculating was maybe in the range of 500,000 euros or US dollars. What are we talking?
I heard 300 to 500,000 euros.
Okay. So that would put him roughly at the level of a Google product manager level 3. And that's somebody with about 3 to 10 years of experience in that product management role. So just providing a point of comparison there for Derek.
I mean, even if you want to go apples for apples,
yeah,
Ineos just signed a 16-year-old for multiple millions a year.
Yeah.
And
great.
500,000 euros a year. I mean, there might not be a rider in Visma Lisa Bike's tour team making that amount of money.
Yeah. I think that,
that little amount of money. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting as younger and younger riders start to get signed. I have to imagine that the gating factor in talent development likely has to do with the psychological aspect of someone who's been benighted before they've demonstrated that they can actually produce results. So when you're in this privileged position, walking into a team with a massive contract, and it's really about your numbers at that point, not about the value you've delivered, I think that a lot of distortions of your development would occur. And I think that it's going to be a really challenging situation. I don't know how they handle it in soccer/football in Europe, where I know that this is very commonplace, but it's complex within a sport like cycling that's not the richest sport, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to a former Ineos superstar about this, who cannot believe what the team has become. And his big theory, it sounds like an old man yelling at clouds a little bit, but I buy into it. His big theory is basically the kids are making too much money on that team because Ineos will sign you and give you a ton of money. And then immediately, what do? You don't work that hard, right? Because you just signed a huge contract. And then you see the best British riders now, like Oscar Onley, are signing low money deals for non-British teams and then having to prove themselves and get better. And they're outperforming the British talent signed by Ineos because essentially you're just getting signed and then sitting on your butt because you're making so much money. And it does seem like that's a tough one to crack. Don't pay 16-year-olds millions of dollars, I guess, would be my advice. Because
you got to get them.
You got to get them.
That's the battle, right?
Well, the thing is, how did UAE get Pogačar? How did Visma get Vingegaard? That still eludes me a little bit. I mean, I don't think Pogačar was making a ton of money when he went to, and maybe information sharing just wasn't as good back then.
Yeah.
And those teams knew about those riders and other teams didn't know about them.
Yeah. And I think Pog and Jonas, I don't know. I think that they're rare examples of people that have evolved in a way that's, as leaders, that's commensurate with their talent and what they've been getting paid. And I mean, that's part of why they're so exceptional. Although the caveat is, I was just thinking about Jonas's performance at the European Championships and pulling the plug. Who knows what's going on? Part of me has to wonder, was he staining the deck? the days prior to the race, like what was going on at home, right? I'm looking at a deck right now that I've got to stain this weekend, Spencer, and I know.
We've stained over here. We're good for at least
Well, I
a
didn't
few
even
months.
think about it until you mentioned you'd stained, and then I was like, do I need to stain my deck? And then, yeah, actually I do. And it's about to be a long, brutal winter. It just frosted today, as I mentioned earlier.
The deck stain is, you get like a week of feeling good, and then you start to stress about the next time you have to stain it.
Right.
Yeah, because decks are strange, but we should just all have synthetic decks. Here's wood. It's out there. It's slowly rotting, and it's going to cost a ton of money to replace. It is funny to think back to 2019, 2020. Ineos is fighting all these wars. Remember, they get Richard Carapaz, and who said when he left Movistar, they said, "Why are you leaving?" He said, "Because of money," which I love, by the way.
Yeah.
Telling it how it is. But they have this complex deal with this Italian agent who's funneling all these South American riders to them. It's how they get Egan Bernal. They're doing everything they can, throwing so much money at Carapaz and Bernal. And you go back, it's like watching an army fighting a war, and they're leaving their flank wide open. And you guys have no idea who you're not signing right now. Like, Pogačar is going to destroy you, and you don't even know it. You're getting the wrong riders. But I guess it's hard to see that in the moment. And I don't quite have, you got to get these top young riders. Like Paul Seychelles seems to be the real deal. But how, I guess it's chicken or the egg. If you're really him, for lack of a better term, the money's not going to affect you negatively because you're a killer and you need to do it no matter what. If you're not the rider that they need you to be, you're not going to perform anyway. You know, like if you have to prove yourself to get the next contract, you're going to crap out on that next contract anyway. Once you start getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Andrew, you got to explain. I just fundamentally don't understand this Garmin versus Strava thing. I'm seeing a lot of chatter on. Everyone seems to have turned on Strava on the Strava Reddit page, which seems like not a good place for Strava to be. As a former Strava executive, can you explain what is this suit going on with Garmin?
Yeah, my understanding is probably similar to yours and that of people who are listening to this podcast. I don't have an inside line on what's going on inside the company right now. I think it's a great product and I want the company to succeed. And when I read the same things that everyone else read, I think that this reminds me a bit of what we were discussing as it relates to contract matters between riders and their employers. So Garmin and Strava have long been co-opeters. So they have been competitors who are cooperating, and it has been to the benefit of both businesses. The litigation relates to Garmin's API and Strava's API, and an API is an application programming interface, and it's a way for a technology product to share its information with other technology products, just to be super broad. So it's the way these two products interface with each other. There's a dispute about the manner in which that's happening as it relates to the agreement these companies have. And Strava is the center of connected fitness. It has more than 400 partners, applications, hardware devices, things like your Peloton bike, your Garmin, your Wahoo, whatever. It all uploads into Strava. And that's part of how people use it, is for this social aspect, because there is interoperability no matter what device you have. I think if we step back and look at this broadly, we know that Strava has said publicly that they plan to IPO as soon as Q1 2026. That's something that they've shared and have on the record. And if we just think generally about companies that are preparing to IPO, they have to file an S1. And if there are litigation matters related to core IP, it would seem that any company that's about to file for an IPO, they would want to get ahead of this and not have the S1 be the first place that potential investors are reading about it. So just from a timing perspective, I'm speculating, but if we think about companies that are moving towards IPO, they want to show they have defensible intellectual property. They want to show that they defend that intellectual property if someone's infringing on it. And number three, they are going to have to disclose any litigation. So they might want to front run that and get it out there before they have the S1 filing and then move into actually having the IPO. So those are my general thoughts on this. And then in terms of how it's being handled, it seems like Garmin really hasn't said anything. And from what I've seen on Reddit threads and in other places, there's been some explaining, it seems like, on the Strava side.
And if you're explaining, you're losing. Is that what you said at the start of the show? Did I pick that up?
You said it, Spencer.
Yeah. So this is actually the best rundown I've seen of the technical dispute here from our friend Chat G. I'm going to say it and then try to translate it into English. Garmin introduced new developer guidelines that require API partners, which would include Strava, to display the Garmin logo on every shared activity, graph, card, etc. So that means I do a ride on my Garmin, it uploads to Strava automatically, but then it has to say Garmin on that ride, the ride map. Strava obviously opposes us, calling it blatant advertising and a burden on user data. Garmin has threatened to cut off API access if partners don't comply, meaning if I do a ride on my Garmin, it no longer uploads to Strava. Is that correct?
That's what it seems like.
Which would be terrible for Strava, I assume, because, I mean, imagine this happened. Do you have a Garmin? I have a Garmin.
I do. I have several. I'm wearing a Garmin watch. I use a Garmin device. Yeah, I mean, we also should note,
I just don't think I would upload to
Garmin
Strava
is
anymore.
based in Lenexa, Kansas, so this is like a buy Mocan first kind of thing, right?
Well, I also like Garmin outside of my deep Mocan loyalty because it works. I was on like a retreat. I was with a group retreat at Pace Ranch, actually, another time, and they were investors in Hammerhead, which is another head unit, and it just like didn't work. Like they couldn't get them to, their rides were not uploading. And I was like, oh, maybe owning the product from the company that specializes in satellites and maps is pretty good because it means it will work. But if Garmin stopped allowing your rides to go straight to Strava, I probably would not go back to like manually downloading my rides and then uploading them into Strava, which is what I used to do. I don't think I would do it anymore.
Yeah, and I think that that's what you're reading a lot of on Reddit and in other places. And just, again, broadly stepping away from the specifics of this case, there also is this question of these general concepts of segments and heat maps. I mean, actually, that's a core part of this litigation as well. And for all companies right now, they're thinking about who owns what data and how can it be used to train LLMs, and how can that then be used in product functionality now and over time. And Strava itself in November of 2024 made significant changes to their API access, as they have done a number of times during the history of the company. And I think that that's part of what's happening with users who are really in the weeds on this matter as well, is there's some tension around that, it seems.
Yeah, because your Garmin rides are populating the Strava heat map, which Strava may use for something at some point other than me just kind of zooming in to try to figure out where I can ride when I go to a new city. They might have something actually useful planned for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, if you read the full legal filing, part of what this is related to is the core technology of segments and heat maps. And Garmin and Strava both have segments and heat maps, but there's this question of who owns those technologies.
Yeah, I'm learning right now as you say this that Garmin as segments, but
yeah,
you,
right. Like, I mean, before this legal dispute, I don't think that I knew that Garmin had segments.
it kind of
Yeah,
opens up we won't talk about it on this show. This is a whole other podcast, but the utility of being a social media app for fitness versus just a very useful fitness app
right.
for the user.
Yeah,
Because as I get older, I kind of wonder, do I just need to upload my rides into an app that tells me useful information about that ride and stores it, and I can compare it to the past? And this probably the downside of this entire lawsuit for Strava is for the first time in my life, I'm wondering, well, do I really need the social media aspect? Versus I was on the hamster wheel before. I wasn't even thinking about it. And now I am wondering, like, that's kind of funny. Like, well, everyone can see my rides. Is that even a good idea? Should I do that?
you know what's interesting? I don't know if you ever did this, Spencer. When I got into cycling, I can remember sitting in a basement, just staring at a wall and riding my bike, and then I would go write it down in a notebook afterwards, like
Yeah.
on a turbo trainer.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know if you know who John Stamstead is, but he was one of the first ultra distance cyclists, ultra distance mountain bike racers as well. Absolute legend. But he famously would just ride on his trainer and stare at a drywall for like 10 straight hours. Yeah.
I've done it. I remember
Yeah.
seeing someone's trainer set up in front of a TV, and that was mind blowing.
Like, yeah, you'd
Whoa,
have the World Cycling Productions DVDs, right?
learn a
Like
lot there.
Paris-Roubaix, 1997. Wow, I've watched it 500 times.
That's you're explaining the origin of Beyond the Peloton. Kansas Winters 2007. It's like, all right, we're gonna sit down and watch the 1991 Tour de France.
Yeah.
Work our way through that. I miss World Cycling Productions. Well, Andrew, we'll let you go. And then when that IPO happens, we'll be doing the show from a yacht, I assume.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get a small rowboat. We'll put it on Hobbs Pond. We'll have the Great Gathering 2026, and we'll get the whole crew out here to Hope, Maine to celebrate for sure.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, and we will talk. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm pretty sure Tadej Pogačar just won his third Monument of the Year, in addition to the Tour de France, which is pretty impressive.